Warning: the following video may contain subject matter that younger and sensitive viewers may find frightening and disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. A blood-curdling scream rang out from upstairs. Thomas's mother and father leapt to their feet and sprinted up the stairs. Simon followed suit. Their hearts were racing. They were drenched in a cold sweat. Entering Thomas's room, they were met with a terrifying scene. One straight out of a nightmare. But this was no nightmare. This was real. Welcome to Ziggy Mysteries. As always, we have a bizarre and exciting episode in store for you. But before we begin, please hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell so that you'll never miss a Ziggy mystery. And make sure to share this video with your friends and family. Thank you. Now, grab yourself a snack, dim the lights, get cozy and strap in for a strange and wild ride. Let's begin. This story takes place decades ago in a small, sleepy town out in the countryside. It's here where Simon decided to set up practice as a woodworker and live the quiet, simple life. It had been 2 years since he had left the seminary. He was still very much spiritual and had no qualms with the church, but he didn't quite know what he wanted out of life. And so after leaving the seminary, he spent the next couple years traveling around the country trying to figure things out. His journey had brought him to this small town, where he fell in love with its quiet charm and saw it fit to be home for the next little while. Simon was eager to get settled in and acquainted with the local community as quickly as possible. It was a tight-knit town. Everyone knew everyone else, as well as the comings and goings of the occasional passers-by. Simon joined the church community and began attending Mass regularly. He was warmly welcomed and soon became a fixture there. He and the priest, Father Jacob, struck up a friendship, sharing stories of their days in the seminary. Father Jacob never pressed Simon as to why he left the seminary. He was a very understanding, compassionate man and knew the intricacies of life and the human condition, knowing people have their reasons for their choices. Given Simon's years at seminary college, Father Jacob saw him a great fit to teach Sunday school and invited him to do so. Simon agreed, feeling pleased that he could put his years of theological education to some use without feeling as though it was a complete waste. On his first day teaching Sunday school, Simon got acquainted with all the children. They were all normal little boys and girls. Well, mostly. There was one boy in particular who stood out as different from the rest. His name was Thomas. He was 6 years old. When all the other children were beaming with enthusiasm to participate in the activities, Thomas seemed distant and withdrawn. Simon understood that little children have all sorts of different personalities, so it didn't seem like any cause for concern. That is, until Simon began talking about the gospel. Simon noticed something very strange. Thomas began rocking back and forth in his chair, almost in a trance. Simon continued his lesson, albeit with one eye fixed on Thomas. As the lesson progressed, Thomas's rocking intensified until he collapsed from his chair and began convulsing. Everyone was startled, and Simon ran to Thomas's aid. Thomas snapped out of it, and a call was made to his parents to come quickly. Simon dismissed the rest of the children early as Thomas's parents arrived. They had brought with them a whole slew of Thomas's medication. This was not the first time he had had convulsions. They explained to Simon that Thomas's issues had started only recently after an unfortunate incident. A month prior, Thomas had gone missing for hours. A search party was assembled and Thomas was found later that night, trapped in a tree hollow deep in the woods behind their property. It turned out Thomas had wandered off while playing without anyone noticing. The parents felt extremely guilty and said Thomas's condition had been worsening ever since. They had taken him to several doctors who were not able to pinpoint exactly what the issue was. But they nonetheless put Thomas on a medication program, believing his symptoms may be the result of an acute stress disorder. Simon expressed his sympathy toward the situation and said he would give Thomas extra attention to cater to his needs. Thomas's parents expressed their gratitude. But that's when they choked up and mentioned that other strange things had been happening as well. What sort of strange things? Before they could answer, Father Jacob walked in. He inquired as to Thomas's condition and was pleased to know he was okay. Thomas's parents mentioned that they had been seeking help from the church for Thomas's condition as well. Father Jacob said for now it's best they continue seeking professional medical help and to pay no mind to other things. Thomas's parents agreed. Simon asked what other things. Father Jacob said not to worry about it. Over the next few weeks, Sunday school continued as normal. Thomas began warming up to Simon and seemed to be improving. Even his parents noticed and were extremely grateful. Simon was happy that he could make a difference in whatever way possible. But one thing that disturbed him was stories Thomas would casually bring up about the Foxman. When Simon would ask who the Foxman was, Thomas would say he lived in the tree and now lives in me. Simon mentioned this to Thomas's parents, but on the advice of Father Jacob, they dismissed the stories as that of a child's imagination. One Sunday, Thomas did not show up for Sunday school. Concerned, Simon excused himself and stepped out of class to give Thomas's parents a call. No answer. Simon quickly went and found Father Jacob and apprised him of the situation. Father Jacob calmly told Simon to dismiss class and pull his car round. They would both pay a visit to Thomas's house. Simon was in the driver's seat with the car idling. Father Jacob locked up the church and approached the car carrying a large bottle of water. Thank goodness. Simon realized that in the commotion of the day, he had completely forgotten to drink any water and was completely parched. When Simon asked if he could have a sip of the water, Father Jacob forbade him, saying they may need it later. Simon found that odd, but there was no time for questions. They needed to go quickly. Simon and Father Jacob pulled up to the boy's house. Outside was parked the sheriff's car and 2 police cruisers. Simon and Father Jacob entered the house where Thomas's visibly distraught parents were sitting with the officers. The sheriff told Simon and Father Jacob that there had been a bit of a scare in the early morning hours when the boy had gone missing again. But not to worry because he had been quickly found deep in the woods in the same tree hollow. This time they led Thomas's parents to the tree's location in case this happened a 3rd time. One of the other officers then chimed in a hushed tone mentioning that when they found Thomas, there were strange markings on several of the surrounding trees and Thomas had been muttering to himself in what sounded like gibberish. The sheriff told Simon and Father Jacob that Thomas was now upstairs sleeping. And before leaving, he turned to the parents, telling them not to hesitate to give them a call if they needed anything else. The officers then left. It was at this moment that Thomas's parents broke down in tears, pleading with Father Jacob for help. This was the last straw. They were desperate. It seemed like they were dealing with something beyond just an acute stress disorder. All things seemed to point to something unexplainable. Father Jacob took a deep breath and nodded his head. He said they would begin a sermon at sundown. The light outside was quickly dying. The orange sky was being overtaken by darkness. Father Jacob began his sermon. It was about 20 minutes in when he ceremoniously lifted the chalice. Loud thumping could be heard upstairs. Thomas's parents and Simon all looked at each other with terror. Father Jacob warned them to ignore it. He continued the sermon. He took the holy host and ate it. Immediately a blood-curdling scream rang out from upstairs. Thomas's mother and father leapt to their feet and sprinted up the stairs. Simon followed suit. Their hearts were racing. They were drenched in a cold sweat. Entering Thomas's room, they were met with a terrifying scene. One straight out of a nightmare. But this was no nightmare. This was real. Standing above a sleeping Thomas was a shadowy, sinister-looking figure. The room was dark, but the three adults could make out certain features on this entity. It was the Foxman Thomas spoke of. Thomas's dad lunged at the creature, but it ran up the wall and onto the ceiling in an eerie manner and escaped out of the window. Thomas's mother ran to Thomas and cradled him. Thomas slowly awoke, seemingly confused and unaware of what had happened. Simon and Thomas's dad ran downstairs to pursue the Foxman. Father Jacob was in deep prayer on his knees. He told the two of them that the boy is now cleansed, but that they are all still in danger. Simon told Thomas's dad that they must burn down that old tree. Thomas's dad fetched a canister of gasoline, some matches, a lantern, and a shotgun. The two of them made haste out into the black woods. After what felt like forever, the old tree came into view. It was large, knotted, and dead. In it, a gaping tree hollow like the mouth of a beast. Thomas's dad took aim at with his shotgun at while Simon made quick work pouring gasoline all around the tree. With one match, the old tree was lit ablaze. Simon and Thomas's dad stood back, hearts racing, adrenaline pumping. It was over. What a relief. Suddenly, the Foxman leapt out of the tree hollow right onto Thomas's dad, knocking the shotgun clean out of his hands. Simon ran for the shotgun and aimed it at the Foxman, but it jammed. The Foxman made a move towards Simon. Simon shielded his face knowing it was the end. But the same blood-curdling scream rang out. Simon opened his eyes to see the Foxman on the floor convulsing and smoldering. Father Jacob appeared on scene, armed with his large bottle of holy water, splashing it at the creature. The Foxman was quickly reduced to a pile of ashes. Father Jacob looked at Simon and said, "I told you we might need this." That brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed this Ziggy mystery. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay up to date on all future Ziggy mysteries. Make sure to share this video with your friends and family and check out more Ziggy mysteries on this channel. Until next time, stay safe.